What it do, what it do? How y'all feeling? Welcome. This is Ash Neil's Radio. I am your host, Ash Neil. That is I. So, we talking to y'all. Yes. Piers Morgan. He had one of these Jubilee debates with 20 woke liberals. Right? Right. Got it. And I don't know. It was kind of interesting because he was discussing toxic masculinity with a couple women, and it didn't really go his way. So I want to dive into this take with just a couple women. And because I don't know. I agree and I disagree with Piers Morgan. But I agree and disagree with the women. I think toxic masculinity is a thing, but I think it's been overused by some liberals. So let's go ahead and analyze this little debate and give our little piece.
Am I cowering? The wokies are around me. Stop talking,
in a
Parker.
positive way is
Parker!
literally participation trophies not being there.
Advantage is so annoying. Look,
Have you been on your own show?
Parker.
You interrupted me the whole time, and now you're just getting the same thing.
So me
Order
telling
people to
you
do it.
that you are spreading misinformation, that is not fascism. That is just me telling you you're wrong.
But you're not telling me I'm wrong because I'm right. Hi, I'm Piers Morgan, and I'm the host of Piers Morgan Uncensored on YouTube. I'm also the author of a new book, Woke is Dead, and today I'm surrounded by 20 apparently still alive woke liberals. My first surrounded claim is that masculinity has never been toxic.
Okay, first, I'm going to pretend like I beat everybody to the chair. Right? Especially this nigga. Toxic masculinity is a thing. It is. Is it overused? Yes. But to sit there and think that the term wife beater was accepted just to identify a tank top, an undergarment, it was actually accepted. That was a form of toxic masculinity. The story behind it, some guy killed his wife, and after he took his mugshot, he had a bloody tank top on, and the newspaper defined it as a wife beater, or him as a wife beater, and it just stuck. And we accepted the term, bought them in different colors. That's kind of toxic. But when liberals are sitting here debating men, and then they get all animated, and then the man happens to get animated himself, they will call that mansplaining. And then equate it to toxic masculinity. No, now you're doing too much. So, I do agree that it exists, but I think liberals had overused it.
1 second. How do you do? I'm Piers.
So I guess where I want to kind of start is talking about masculinity. So I view this, do you think that this is like socially emergent, I imagine, to some degree?
Well, I think the truth about the whole toxic debate about masculinity is it's a completely new phenomenon. Before, about 30 years ago, nobody ever used that phrase. It's only really in the last 10 years it's suddenly been amplified and used for absolutely everything. So I thought it might be useful to just start with something that Chris Williamson, you may know him, great guy, and he came on my show recently, and he said that all the following things have been blamed on toxic masculinity in the media in the last year and a half. Gang violence, climate change, the financial crisis, Brexit, the election of Donald Trump, not wearing a face mask, eating meat, physical fitness, fast food, capitalism, communism, hip-hop, smelling of Axe body spray, being stoic, risk-taking, religion, but also secularism and atheism, playing board games, being interested in cars, and saying hello or have a nice day. So I have already committed at least one crime because I've already said hello to you.
That's
so
true.
my point being,
So I know it sounds like he being hyperbolic, but there are people out there like TYT and a Kasparian. They were actually equating toxic masculinity to Axe commercials. Yeah. Yeah. You know those commercials when they're like, oh, yeah, you want to smell like a man after your shower. You don't want to smell like your wife's perfume, flower, soap. Buy this. Get this soap. Get this body spray. Feel like a man. Yeah. The Anarcho-Kasparians of the world called that toxic. Toxic masculinity. Sorry. They were doing too much. So, yeah. There's some there. There is. But, let's see how this goes, because I agree and disagree.
Really offended by that, too.
Sorry?
I said I'm actually very offended by that, too.
No, the thing is, I think the point I would make is, I think in a time when young men in particular, I've got 3 sons from 32 to 24, I think we've got to a weird place where they feel like they are the most downtrodden, picked upon people in society, with good reason in many cases. And a lot of it is down to this, where they don't know what masculinity is. My argument is, I don't think it's ever been toxic. What's happened is you have men behaving badly, but you also have women behaving badly, and no one calls that toxic femininity.
Well,
Over to you.
I actually do call it toxic femininity. I think when you look at, I do. When you look at like gender studies and philosophy on this, right? We use this term called masculinities and femininities because we understand that like the samurai era of masculinity looks very different than maybe the knights of the round table and whatnot. So we understand that masculinity has somewhat morphed and shifted. And in every form of these masculinities or femininities, there are unhealthy elements to each of them. Could you grant me that?
Well, it depends what you mean. I mean, what do you think masculinity is?
In our society, I think masculinity...
No, not in your society. Just generally, what is it?
Yeah, in North America, we would broadly view it as like...
Well, hang on, you can't just say North America. Masculinity is a thing. It's not like territory specific. It has become that way with the toxic element.
Well,
but actual masculinity, when it was first devised as a word, it's not an American thing. It's a global thing.
Do you think that Athenian masculinity and Spartan masculinity were the same in the Greeks?
I think masculinity has never changed. All that's changed is the interpretation of it. And what I can't abide is this modern phenomenon that everything about masculinity, everything about being a man, which I am currently identifying as, everything about me is supposedly toxic.
So I would reject the idea that everything that masculinity is toxic. I think that there can be bad elements of anything.
What do you like about men?
What do I like about men? Lots of things. I think that like the idea of protectionism is good. I think the willingness to kind of like self-sacrifice is very tied to the version of masculinity we have. I think that that's a very good thing. I think the desire to provide is also a really good thing, and stand up for like principles and strength. I think all of these things are wonderful things. Well, the issue.
Do you like men to be hunters, providers, protectors?
I don't really care about them being hunters.
Really? Well, how are they going to get all these things to help you and protect you?
In this economy, I'd prefer them just to be like fiscally capable. Let's go back to the Athenians. Let's go back to.
Now, like she said, there are different versions of masculinity. You know, you could look at it the way back in the days they used to vote. I think they still do it now. Some of them, they go to the parliament with their like blonde wigs and their skirts and shit. These were men. These men couldn't even vote on legislation until they put that blonde wig on. Some men would look at that as feminism. Really? Like, bro, what's with the skirt? Some countries was like, hey, trip this. Women can't vote. Women aren't allowed to make laws. But the men who passed the laws wore wigs and skirts. I don't know. So yeah, some other countries would have looked at that like, hey man, I ain't wearing that shit, but let's go ahead and let's have this vote.
Athenians and Spartans, though, right? If you want to say masculinity has always been the same, well, the issue is history would disagree with you, right?
Right.
In Athens, for example, it was completely normal for you to participate in civility and talk and do philosophy, but Spartan men, for example, wouldn't even touch coins, right? They viewed it as a very different thing.
Whereas what's that got to do with them being masculine?
Well, because the version of masculinity that they had viewed certain things like commerce as feminine. If you go to samurais, they viewed poetry as masculine. Whereas if you go to like Victorian era, poetry is often associated with femininity.
But what does any of that got to do with toxic masculinity?
Because if we look at masculinity, we have to acknowledge that it is emergent out of a society that we are participating in. When I said, well, in North America, you rejected that. And I go, well, that's the foundational piece of this. What we're talking about, toxic masculinity, is essentially a North American version of masculinity that we seem to not like.
Well, no, it's not. It's a symptom of, and forgive my phraseology here, but it's a symptom of weak, whiny, woke wastrels who've decided they're going to revise what masculinity is.
I think it's intergenerational.
Well, like she said, the Spartan men, like if y'all remember 300, when when the Persians came in with nose rings and all the bracelets and shit. That looked like a lot of estrogen coming down the hill. And those Spartan men actually looked at that as, that's your king? That's your king? This nigga over here with all them rings and bracelets and clinging and shining, and his nose ring is attached to his belly button. Bro, but they looked at that as royalty. You know, the more jewels you had, the more masculine you were. That's how they interpret masculinity. 300 men didn't look at it that way. No.
Hang on. I'll give you a chance to respond. And they're going to make all men feel terrible. They're going to make men hate themselves. They're going to make everybody else hate men. And at that point, I'm like, what are you doing here? Why would women, for example, want their men to be weak, whiny, woke wastrels?
Well, I think the issue that you're neglecting here is the high levels of intergenerational trauma amongst men. I mean, if we go back to World War II, it's followed by the Vietnam War, right? We see men dying by the thousands, and then they come back and they have PTSD, and then they go off again and die by the thousands. And so when we look at like the lack of masculinity and masculine role models, we have to understand this through a lens of understanding that like men have been like scooped out and killed over and over, and then when they come back, they're destroyed. And there isn't really an answer for men. I agree that there's the systemic lacking of answer on the left for men in a lot of ways. The issue is that we can't address
I think the left
problem.
hate men. I mean,
Just to pause you.
They do. Even movies like Barbie.
I'm left.
Okay, here's a little secret for you. I'm slightly left. I'm an old-fashioned liberal.
Do you hate men?
I'm not a. You see, they all think probably I'm a right-wing headbanger. I'm not. I'm an old-fashioned liberal. I believe in liberalism, and I believe there's nothing wrong with being feminine or masculine. I hate the way that masculinity has been tarred with this brush of everything about it is toxic.
I agree. But the issue is that you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You have to look at things like Victorian Stoicism and recognize how that has harmed young men. Because
Stoicism? Don't be ridiculous.
Hold on, Victorian Stoicism, not Greek. Not Greco-Stoicism.
Stoicism generally is a good trait.
I love Stoicism, Hellenistic Stoicism, not Greek.
Well, let me read you something. You've raised Stoicism. Sure. The American Psychological Association released a set of guidelines to help psychologists work with men and boys, in which it stated that male masculine traits like
Stoicism is just basically your confidence in being able to get out of certain situations without having so much emotions tied to you that may. It's almost like, if you put it in layman's terms, being able to control your butterflies. Like you're strong enough to get up out of certain things. You're confident. You're overconfident. Nothing is going to deter you. You know, some of it can be interpreted as vain, like over cocky, confident, but it does help in certain situations. So some men had picked it up as a form of strength, like artificial stoicism. Like they had to learn it and like implement it in places where it didn't need to be. So it became toxic. So yeah. I agree and disagree.
Competitiveness, achievement, eschewal of the appearance of weakness, adventure and risk should all be discarded. Now, I would categorize all of those things as the very best of being a real man. Why would you want them discarded?
I don't want most of those things. Let's talk about Stoicism.
I think we agree with each other. I think you agree with me too much. Anyway, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she got him. Personally, me. But there's some points there where, where they agree. And that's the key thing. You have to come to some type of agreement, because for you to come off at first talking about there's no such thing as toxic masculinity, it doesn't exist. Sorry, that's where you lose everybody. But when you can come to some form of agreement and be like, all right, well, I can see what you mean there, but now we have a debate, and that's the healthy part of it all. But hold on, I want to go into this next one because this next one, she did her thing. She did her thing.
Hello.
Hi, Piers.
How are you?
Ceci.
Ceci, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Notice how the men allow the women to beat them to that seat. Hey, liberals.
Okay. First, I want to say that I don't think that masculinity is toxic.
Great.
I just think
Debate
that
over.
some men
Hang on,
use their.
hang on.
Wait.
Ceci, debate over.
No, it's
That's
not.
the whole point of my argument. I agree with you.
No. Because you're talking about a trait, right? So I don't think masculinity is toxic. I think men use their masculinity in toxic ways or hide other traits that are toxic behind their masculinity.
Okay, I don't agree with that. Here's why. They're not using their masculinity. They're just being bad people.
Okay.
So
but
I think there's a clear difference.
So then men like Andrew Tate, when they are bad people, but
Yeah.
then stand like, I'm a protector, I'm a provider, they're using their masculinity as
I've
a
interviewed
guise.
I've interviewed Andrew Tate a number of times. Here's what I think about him. I think he says a lot of things which young men gravitate to because very few other people are trying to empower them about the way they look. Hang on.
No, I'm not.
Let me finish my sentence.
I can have a facial reaction to you if I want to, right?
Actually, that's fair enough. You
Right.
can. You can look
That was a little toxic, Piers. A little mansplaining. She ain't even say nothing.
horrified. But here's the point about Andrew Tate, is a lot of the things he says, I know why they resonate with young men.
Okay.
Because young men feel sort of worthless, they feel disenfranchised by society, they're not sure where to go, many of them lack father figures. There's chest-beating Andrew Tate saying, keep fit, don't abuse yourself too much.
Just women.
Well, I'm going to come to that. And so he says all these things which men go, yeah, that's good. And aspire to be great, aspire to be successful, do this, work hard, and all this. And then you get to his blatant misogyny. Right, he is a terrible misogynist. He thinks that women should be left at home, never allowed to vote,
I know who he is,
never
yeah.
allowed to work. I know, but my point is, I agree with you about that trait of his. Right, I think it's horrible, but that's not toxic masculinity.
But
that is actually misogyny. There's a word for it.
I guess the reason.
Now, I don't agree with Andrew Tate. I think he's a dumbass, half black dude who thinks the N-word is more feasible with the ER at the end of it. I don't fuck with him. Plus, he is a misogynist because he doesn't respect women. But even the term misogyny has been overused because some women agree with the role of a housewife. To be honest with you, I agree with Muslims. I do. I agree with some Muslims. Trip, Muslims and conservatives agree on some of the same things. And I agree with them. The 19th Amendment, they want to abolish it. They want to at least repeal it. Let's think about it. I don't know if we should have the 19th Amendment. I don't think women should have the right to vote. That's how they feel. Me, I think women should have the right to vote. So there's a difference. But having women in the house, they don't have to work. Oh, yeah. They can just sit there and nurture the kids and, cook, clean. Some women actually like that. Some women wish that the economy wasn't so bad that you didn't have to live under a dual income household. And the man, his income was enough to support the family. That way she could sit at home. I think it was feminists that turned that term into some type of insult. Turned that into some type of negative towards women. Oh, housewife. I ain't no housewife. Fuck I look like. It's not a negative. Yeah. Some Muslim men, they don't allow, some Muslim countries, they don't allow their women to walk down the street without a company of another man. Okay. What's wrong with that? This is rape culture America. Like, we should have that kind of mindset where we ain't gonna let our wives walk down the street without having some type of protection, right? Right? They all wrapped up, keeping herself covered. Only time she shows herself is to her husband, right? Those are good traits of the Muslim faith, right? That's how my wife is. She ain't about to be walking around with her legs out, and she damn sure don't want to walk out without me. And that's how some conservatives are. They don't want women out in the street, in the workforce, or even voting. So yeah, I think they come to an agreement. And I agree with them on that. And I don't think that's misogynistic to think that women shouldn't be as worked in the sector, in the private sector, as men are. I think that the economy should be a little more affordable. That way the nuclear family can exist again.
But I think that all of this was fueled by people like Andrew Tate, because like you said, toxic masculinity, we've never spoke about this before. But I think the reason it's on the table now is because of men like Andrew Tate. It's not because of women calling men
So call
toxic.
it what it is. Call him a
literally
misogynist.
because red pill podcasters, especially during the pandemic, if you were already a loner, you became even more alone, so they needed a community. So everyone's living life online in these, what they thought was a community, because all these men did was validate their shitty feelings that they already had about themselves.
Yes, but
it was an echo chamber, and they have to keep them sad and angry, tell them to place the blame on women and minorities so that they get their pockets filled.
But here's the thing.
They monetize
Am I allowed to get a
insecurities
word
and
in?
trauma. You can have your facial reactions.
Time out.
Go ahead.
Politely.
Go
Time
ahead.
out. I think what you're talking about is misogyny. There's already a word for that. It's not toxic masculinity. That's the point of my argument. I don't think masculinity has ever been toxic. I do think some men are horrible misogynists
But do you think
and should
some
be
of them
called
hide
out
behind
as
it?
I call them out.
Don't you think some men hide behind their masculinity? Like, I'm sick of hearing men say, we have to protect and provide.
Why shouldn't we?
Well, no. But the thing is half of you, what are you going to protect me from? Another man. And half of them can't hunt down a job. Like, I don't
Or
know.
other women.
Bars.
Or other women, sure, yeah, other people. But that's the thing I'm saying is that men, I don't understand why. I feel like a lot of blame gets placed on women for all of this, but in reality, you've done it to each other.
I don't blame women for
You've
that.
done it to each other.
I don't blame women for any of this. I think that, well, actually, that's not completely true. I blame some women who have deliberately, in my opinion, like a lot of men have done too, taken the word masculinity and they have traduced it into meaning something it was never intended to mean. Like I said, those words, which the American Psychological Association have deemed unacceptable and should be discarded, are all the absolute foundation of what I believe it takes to be a man.
Ah, damn it. I wanted
Just
that.
when we were getting to know each other.
And I hear him. But no. Because for you to feel like toxic masculinity never existed, sorry, you lose everybody. Because I'm to be honest with you, I don't like the fact that and I'm gonna just go on a little rant, bear with me. When we look at things from the past, like Mad Hatter disease, right? We know what that was. So for some of the people who don't know, right? Back in the days, white men used to shine their hats with mercury, right? Had them bitches blinging. But they used to suffer from mercury poisoning, right? And they would have this, they would develop this kind of attitude that will make them go home and be angry men. Toxic men, literally toxic. And that masculinity did come off as a form of, I run this. I don't care if I have any brain issues right now. And men didn't even know. They didn't even know that neurologically something was happening to them with their hats, right? But the masculinity in them said, I don't care. I'm doing what I want. Next thing you know, like I said, the term wife beater was accepted. Why? Why did we accept it? In different colors. It's crazy as shit. So when we can sit back and understand that some of these things contributed to the actual term toxic masculinity, people like Piers Morgan can't come up here and gaslight us saying it never existed. No. And I do want to hone in on Mad Hatter disease, because I don't like the fact that we can afford that kind of excuse to men. At least back then, we gave men an excuse to be toxic. Oh, it's not him. It's his hat. Motherfucker. And I'm not even disputing it. But we didn't get that same treatment towards women. No. Now, if I could entertain the fact that mercury had poisoned the brain of some of these men, why can't we look at that in some of the hair products in black women? I mean, we sit there and call them, what? The angry black woman, angry black woman. But yeah, sorry, Michelle Obama told y'all straight up. They had to straighten their hair just to be accepted in white America. And a lot of those products came with toxic chemicals. So yes, And since you're going to forward that Mad Hatter disease to men, why not afford it to women? And there is some there. There may be something there. Hey, y'all bitches are slick. How do I know that Mad Hatter disease wasn't like a light bulb? And then y'all just put it in products to make women put it in their hair. I don't know. But you can't tell me, after all the research, Piers, all the studies, and coined a term about Mad Hatters, if you don't think that toxic masculinity was a thing. Because that's the only thing that made that term possible. The mercury poisoning. So I agree and disagree. But it was a good little debate. I think the women held their own. I think Piers need to understand that everything ain't all roses like him. Because to be honest with you, Piers, some men think that sipping tea is feminine.